welcome once again, Robin Dreeke, to the Empathy Edge podcast. It is always a pleasure to talk to you.
You lighten up my day every time we contact each other. And so it's such an honor to be back, Maria.
I know we were just saying how we couldn't stop doing the pre-record chat because we just kept going and going and going. But
So much
yeah,
fun.
we're here today to talk about Unbreakable Alliances, your newest book. The subtitle, A Spy Recruiter's Authoritative Guide to Cultivating Powerful and Lasting Connections. And I think creating those unbreakable alliances is really what we're all after. And
Mhm.
as you and I have talked, empathy is one of the keys to creating those alliances. So, for those who are not familiar with you, tell us a little bit of your background. I'll also link to our first episode that we did together about spycraft, but tell us a little bit about your background.
I'm taking my pause because it's always hard not to say the first thing that always pops into my mind is my background is number one thing in life is I'm a dad. I am such a proud father. And I suffered proud parent syndrome to the nth degree. Everything I'd learned in my professional life gave me a skill set to be the father I am. Again, I'm going to glow first. My son is a Marine Corps jet pilot, and my daughter is a
Nice.
labor and delivery nurse. I have two adult children that are just rocking it, killing it. And the best part of
Oh,
every single day is them sharing their day with me. I just got off my phone again with my son this morning after every single flight. He calls me, tells me about the flight, tells me about the cool stuff he does, and I just light up inside. Now,
oh,
the thing that gave me the skill set to do that was I'm a United States Naval Academy graduate. I went to the Marine Corps afterwards. After my stint in the Marine Corps, I got out as a captain. I came into the FBI. While I was in the FBI, I served as a counterintelligence agent. My job was recruiting spies for my entire career. And I was a member of the behavioral analysis program for counterintelligence. I became the chief of the behavioral analysis program. So I did all the hooky spooky spy stuff for the FBI as an instructor at Quantico, blah blah blah. And there you go. That's it.
I love it. Well, and that's actually what that's led you into a life of being an executive coach and a speaker
Right.
to help leaders just build those connections. And my first question to you, because it was something that really jumped out at me from reading your book, was the difference. Because when we talk about empathy and we talk about creating connections and building trust through empathy, we all know reality, and we all know that there's some bad actors in the world that manipulate through empathy, and they try to coerce, to manipulate, to get what they want out of the interaction.
Mhm.
So you had a great breakdown of the differences between inspiration, influence, and persuasion. Can you share that with our listeners today?
Yeah, when you work in the world of recruiting spies where no one has to talk to you, because whether it's the intelligence officer themselves that you're trying to recruit or the people around them in their lives that you're trying to glean information from to learn about this individual you want to have a conversation with, no one has committed a crime. And when no one's committed a crime and you're in the FBI and making an approach to try to have a relationship and a conversation with someone, no one has to have a conversation with you. And so if you have in your mind what you want to learn, what you want, me, what's your reaction? Shields up, get out of my life. Why do I want to have a conversation with you? And so I have found that every single word you use and you think about just emanates from you, also from your nonverbals, your verbals, your energy. And so the more you focus you are on yourself, everyone picks up on that. And so, in order to get out of that, I had to let go. And again, there's no right or wrong, there's just choices. I can just guarantee choices of human behavior. If you're focused on yourself and what you want, people are going to shut down. They're going to ignore you. They're going to be polite potentially, but they're not really going to respond in the way that you hope they will. And so, I really felt this nuance was really key and critical. At first, I got away from the word convince anyone because you cannot convince anyone of anything. And then people like using the word persuade and influence because they're softer words and they're nice words. And you look up the definitions that I put in the dictionary about how to, they keep coming back to the same word, influence someone to do this or get someone to do this
Mhm.
or shift their mindset. But remember, every one of those things I'm saying, where's the focus? It's on what I want. But again, if I'm focusing on what I want, the number one thing I'm not doing, which you talk about so eloquently in both your books, is I'm not understanding what they want.
Mhm.
Empathy, doing a deep active dive. And so I use the word inspiration here.
Mhm.
As inspiration forces your mind to shift from what you want and really think about how do I inspire them to want to? Because inspiration is literally just doing that deep, active, empathetic dive to unlock from within them their challenges, pain points, and friction points in life so you can understand life through their optic, through their lens, and then start thinking in terms of what can I do to be a resource for them, allow them and inspire them to feel safe with me so that they might want to align, and thereby you'll have trust and ultimately the healthy relationship that
Mm-hmm.
they choose to have because they see you as someone in their life that they can move forward with. That's really the key to me, is getting away from the words that are self-centered and focused for your
Mm-hmm.
goals and objectives and priorities and thinking in terms of inspiring so you unlock it with them. Now, granted, you know what it is you want. You know what it is your hopes, dreams, and desires and goals and objectives are. That's in the back of your mind. You don't have to actively make that the forefront. You will automatically align it when you discover theirs.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you're offering when you're offering a relationship, when you're offering solutions to things in your life, you're automatically aligning what it is that you're hoping for with what it is you're unlocking within them.
So where do influence and persuasion fall into that? Is it
I
all the
fall
same?
I put influence and persuasion on the same line. I really do. To me,
Okay.
they're the same words because again, they're about what I want. They're about what I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to get you to think, what I'm trying to get you
Mm-hmm.
to do. And again, I'm not talking about intentions here. Intentions can be altruistic. Intentions can be good, but when you're and I use my little nonverbal here. When you're dealing with little micros, or as James Clear talks about atomic habits, when you're talking about one atomic particle, when you're trying to put all the possibilities of success that you can on your side,
Mm-hmm.
every little word matters to me. Every little emotion matters. Every little everything matters. And so if I can just get rid of all the agenda that I have and focus on their agenda,
Mm-hmm.
it makes a difference. It might
Mm.
not be the only difference, but when you cascade that with other behaviors, you're setting yourself up and them up for greater success
Mm-hmm.
together.
And you talk in the book about, the whole linchpin to creating these unbreakable alliances is a focus on trust.
Mm.
And what I always get is the question, how do I build trust? And they've got their pad of paper out, they're ready to take notes on what I'm going to say. And in a way, that's not really my expertise, is psychological safety or trust. So I'm like, I don't know, how do we build trust? So in your experience, how can you build trust, especially when there could be a perception of contention? I mean, you're, like you said, you're dealing with people who are very wary of you and very protective of themselves. Expand that to a work situation where you have a very contentious relationship with a colleague, or you have direct reports who don't believe a word you say. Let's say that's the
Mhm.
situation. How do you build trust in a genuine way? What are some ways that leaders need to put in, what are some things they need to put in place, and what are some mindset shifts they need to have in order to build that trust with people?
There's a few things I'm going to try to. It is very simple to say, challenging to do because our ego and our vanity, our own insecurities and trauma responses we have to others flare up to keep us from doing these behaviors. But the first thing I'm going to do is kind of share very simply what the behaviors of trust are as I define them.
Yes.
And it's really simple: open, honest communication, transparency, and vulnerability. That's it. Because when you are being open, honest with the information that you're looking for, the information that you're sharing, that inspires someone to feel safe. Because first, let's go to the baseline of all human beings as a species. Each of us are extremely predictable because we are all seeking safety, security, and prosperity from the other person's point of view. Empathy. As long as you know what that is, doing that deep dive of what they think safety, security, and prosperity looks like from their point of view, you're on the road to trust. And the bedrock of all it is people just want to feel safe. They want to feel safe physically, they want to feel safe emotionally, want to feel safe spiritually. So if you are the person and you exhibit behaviors that inspires them, not makes them, inspires them to feel safe, that's trust. And so what are the key behaviors that I can do? Because I can't control what they think, I can't control their perception. All I can do is control me. The behaviors that I can control for myself is that open, honest communication. The next is transparency. I get asked this a lot. So, Robin, you know all these tools, techniques, and strategies to build rapport, build trust, and blah, 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 blah. Are you doing it to me now? What? Ensuring that I'm making it all about you? Absolutely. I'm doing the best I can because naturally I'm self centered. I'm overcoming, my own trauma responses from my childhood and growing up to move on from solving my problems to moving on to solving your problems. So that requires a little bit of effort on my time. At this point in my life, I got life reps, and so it's more of a habit for me now than a thoughtful
Hmm.
process. But yes, I am doing it because I want to make it about you. And so what was I just doing? Being transparent. So when in doubt, how do you make sure and ensure that someone knows that you're not manipulating or influencing or persuading in any way? Just be transparent with what you're doing, what your goals, your agendas, everything. Now, this takes courage because people get afraid to share what their goals,
Yeah.
objectives, because it takes courage. But you know what? No one's expecting perfection. They're expecting effort. They hope for effort because the other thing that we're all guaranteed as human beings also is no one's perfect.
Hmm.
Not even close. And so if you try to present an air of perfection in all that you do, you erode trust because you're not being transparent.
Hmm.
And the final key here is the really brave one, being vulnerable.
Hmm.
And being vulnerable just means that you are self-aware enough, like Tasha Yerk talks about in her book Insight,
Hmm.
is that you just have enough self-awareness and self-confidence and assurance that you can share, hey, here's what I'm working on. Here's not what I'm so good at. But at the same time, here's the skills, tools, and techniques, or the other relationships I have to offset that in me and my team.
Hmm.
Same time, here's what I'm good at. And so here's what I'm going to bring to bear really naturally
Right.
for you. And then just own it. So those are the behaviors of trust.
Yeah.
Now,
Well,
when you can, I'm going to keep going, or you can ask a question.
no, I love
Yeah,
it.
lots of words in here. I'm so sorry,
I
Marie.
no, I love it. I love it. Well, and that's why, with the second book, I talked about the first pillar of empathetic and effective leadership is self-awareness. It's also the first step in strengthening your empathy. But,
Hmm.
if we don't know what we're dealing with, we don't have our own house in order, as I always like to say, we really can't take on another person's perspective without fear or defensiveness
Right,
because we're too stuck in our own stuff. And, I'm always beating the drum on this when I'm out doing talks is vulnerable does not mean you fall apart. That's
right.
that's the perception people have, right? No, I've got to keep it together. Vulnerable, you can be confidently vulnerable. I don't know the plan for that yet, Robin, but let's find out together.
You
That's a
just
vulnerable position to say I don't know, but it doesn't have to put you in a position of weakness.
you just said it though, right there. You just actually said something very vulnerable
Hmm.
that I've got to put on these airs to try to, present that I got it all together, but I don't. That
Hmm.
was a very vulnerable statement.
Right.
Because you're being transparent about what it is
Hmm.
you're trying to do because you're trying to present these great things. At the same time, you
Hmm.
you have the self-awareness to understand you don't have it all together.
Right.
And when you share that and you couple it with competence, because the really important thing here that people want to partner with you is that you can balance the dichotomy of vulnerability with competence. Because
Hmm.
if all you're ever doing is saying, I'm vulnerable, I'm not good at this, not good at this, well, then,
Exactly.
then why would I want to work with you? You're a bag
Right.
of rags
Right.
that can't do anything, or you're so insecure, or
Hmm.
you're fishing for compliments, you're fishing for this.
Hmm.
So that's what you don't want. So you
Right.
want to balance that dichotomy, as Leif Babin and Jocko Willink talk about in dichotomy of leadership and extreme ownership, is that you want to everything is a balance. You got to balance this dichotomy, the dichotomy between being vulnerable and confident, because that's what people are hoping to see. And
Absolutely.
and so few people do this. All
Hmm.
you have to do is be the one person that can do it, or at least make the effort to doing it, and who
Hmm.
wouldn't want to partner with you.
Right. Well, and I was kind of paraphrasing a leader saying that, like, look, I
Mhm.
don't, there's a crisis within a company. I don't have all the answers right now. You can say that, and you can say that with confidence rather than, I don't have all the answers. I'm falling apart. Like,
Mhm.
that's the vulnerability a lot of leaders think is expected of them. And that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about being able to admit when you know something, when you don't know something, be open, put your ego aside enough to say someone else might have a better answer. Someone else might have a different point of view. And also that growth mindset of
Mhm.
I'm not perfectly formed version of myself. No matter if I'm the CEO or the chairman of the board or chairperson of the board, it's just that we have to always know that there's more we can learn, more ways we can grow. And that's what we mean by vulnerability is being honest about that journey and saying, we're all still learning. We're all still works in progress. And that's okay. I can still have confidence. I can still be grace under pressure. I can still make a strong decision, but I can also be vulnerable and authentic while doing that. And I think that's the balance that some leaders have a challenge doing because they've only learned to be a leader and in their minds build trust through, I have all the answers. I've got it all covered. I am perfect. I am flawless, right? And so how can we inspire, to use your words, them to shift their mindset that it's okay to let that guard down, that maybe that was a model of leadership you were exposed to for most of your career, but that's not the model of leadership that's going to help you find success today.
I think the challenge in that is anytime someone has a belief system, to move someone beyond their own personal belief system, we tend to only consume information that validates our own belief system. Robert Greene talks about in Laws of Human Nature, as a species, again, we consume information that validates our own self-opinion. That's why the two leading news networks are CNN and Fox News. And that's why they both have large audiences that you cannot shift from one side to the other because people consume the information they want to consume. And
Mm-hmm.
so same thing with a belief system. The only thing that can start shifting a belief system is to demonstrate. And so I would say as a CEO, if you're trying to inspire them to adopt or at least consider, I won't say adopt, at least consider a new mindset on how to approach, is that you're going to have to demonstrate the cause and effect and basically do a simple science experiment for them, show them the stats, show them the data, but at the same time, it's going to have to be real life. It's going to have to
Mm-hmm.
be demonstrated with a control in an experiment. And that's what science experiments are. And that's what human beings are. Every
Mm-hmm.
time something goes sideways with one of my children or even a client, the first thing I always say is, all right, what's next? Who do we need to have a conversation with? What relationship do we need? And let's not change 50 million things at once. Just
Mm-hmm.
pick one, watch cause and effect, and move forward. All these things do require courage and they require a lot of patience sometimes, which if we're bottom line and we have a high tempo, we can't do. But same mind, here's a guarantee though. The easiest way to inspire some of the change is ask them, are you satisfied with what's going on now?
Mm-hmm.
Then what would it cost you to actually try something different?
Right.
Because again, what's the definition of crazy? Doing the same, expecting different results. Every time, as I literally, as I was telling you before we started, I do a lot of true crime commentary on the news and on different podcasts. And we're looking at this one case that this individual was saying, actually, it's the Karen Reed case up in Boston. As of this recording, anyway, it's going through his second trial right now. It's about to start. And one of the references the defendant was saying was that she was doing what she was doing to try to out the corruption in the police department because she's very humanitarian and she's altruistic and she's trying to out corruption in the police department. And that's
Mm-hmm.
part of her defense. And the only thing I said was, if you can't prove the positive, let's look at the reverse angle. All right, if that's what you say, show me all your data points and experiences before that all these great public services and anti-corruption things you've done.
Mm-hmm.
Because this should not be a one-off. In other words,
Mm-hmm.
if you're saying this is who you're about, then this will not be a one-time event. This is going to be a life arc of
Mm-hmm.
being altruistic, of being about anti this, and being about
Mm-hmm.
societal influencer. So
Mm-hmm.
same thing here. So I'm just looking for patterns of behavior. If you have a pattern of behavior that you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to inspire a CEO to change, all you have to do is pinpoint when the behaviors they've had up until that point, the results it's generating, and if
Mm-hmm.
they want a different result, change the pattern of behavior. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
would do.
I love it. I love it. Okay, in the book, in Unbreakable Alliances, you talk about the keys to communications, and they're not just pretty bullet points. You've got some really powerful. You have four powerful nuggets here. Can you share with us what those keys are, and maybe just a quick synopsis of each one?
Yeah, I get my little juices going here
I know
because
he's got it. He's doing his happy dance, folks, right
these
now. So,
are these
yeah.
are my keys that I was so desperately missing in my life. Just a quick narrative preamble. I apologize. As the origin of this and why I needed these so desperately, and why a lot of people do. So I'm what's called, actually, I think I got this from you, first generation professional, right?
Yes,
I
and I got
learned that
that
from
from a
you.
guest of mine. Yeah.
Yep, I absolutely loved it when I read it in your book. I use it all the time, Maria, because I am a first generation professional, meaning I am the first person in my family that has ever owned a home, first one that went to college, first one for everything. So I had no mentors, guides, or teachers in front of me paving the way like
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing and I love doing for my children. Part of that challenge was that I was very, very adept at problem solving for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I was very, very good at building my own alliances and trust and relationships I need to solve those problems, which is a great skill set to have, but I was doing it for myself.
Mm.
In other words, I had life reps until around 23, 24 years old. That was me, 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 because I needed to feel safe, secure, and prosperous that we all did. And I needed to do it for myself. And so what happened was I started fumbling in leadership in the Marine Corps, and I was told you need to shift the focus from yourself to others. And I had no idea what that meant. I had no idea the language behind it. And so, my
This is
major
why
that
we
was
want our son to go to the Marine Corps.
it's life defined. It's not even about the military. It's about learning
Yeah.
about people.
Yeah.
And so what the Marine Corps major couldn't articulate, all he said was just do it, be better.
Right.
Um, so how do you shift the focus from yourself to others? Because we all know this intuitively. We
Right.
need to make it about everyone else. So here's the four keys of communication that I was missing.
Okay.
So the first one is seeking the thoughts and opinions of others instead of rambling on and on and on about what I think.
Mm-hmm.
I was a master of telling you what I thought, especially being an extrovert from New York. Oh my gosh,
Mm-hmm.
forget it.
I hear you.
I could not shut up like now. The second
You're
pillar,
allowed to do that on this podcast. That's why you're here.
but
Yeah.
I'm very aware of it at least. The second one is talking in terms of the challenges, priorities, pain points, and even the friction that other people are dealing with, instead of focusing on what I was complaining about, what's going on in my life. Who
Mm-hmm.
cares?
Mm-hmm.
I was focused on that. The third one, and this is the golden key for everything. If you remember nothing and you can take one atomic nugget and make it part of your life, this is it. Non-judgmental, active curiosity and validation. And I'm going to dive a little bit deeper on this one.
Yeah, please.
I call it active curiosity. And
And this is
actually
where our work intersects all the time
it's
when we
oh my
talk
gosh,
about
it so is.
this.
And actually, you know where I got this from was actually Neil deGrasse Tyson. I interviewed
Mm-hmm.
him for my show about a year or two ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember I had asked him a question, and he rephrased the question and then answered it. And I was like, "That's interesting," because he didn't like the way I asked the question.
Right.
And so that was really interesting. And so what I really came to realize through him and then other writings I had read was that it's not just enough to be curious about what it is I want to know. Let go of your agenda entirely, which allows you to be present and be curious about what it is that they want to share.
Ooh,
That's what active curiosity is.
say that again.
So active curiosity is taking it to the next level. Don't just be curious about what it is you want to know, but be curious about what it is they want to share.
Mm,
In order to
empathy
do
right
that,
there.
it is. In order to do that, we have to let go. And this is the greatest challenge. People always say, so Robin, how do I be present? Everyone says you just need to be present. This is easy. Let go of an agenda.
Yeah.
That's it. Engage another human being, excited to hear what comes out of their mouth.
Yeah.
You start off with a beautiful open-ended question of what, and I've done to you on my show, was that spark and inspiration that it inspired you to be who you are today?
Right.
They're going to take you on a journey, and then all you have to do is fill out the nooks and crannies. Be curious about what it is they're saying without an agenda, except
Mm-hmm.
the only agenda I've ever had, I'm going to find your greatness. I'm going to give myself a positive confirmation bias, and I'm going to find your greatness because it's in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to find it. Hopefully, I'm going to ask a question that inspires you to think about yourself in a way that you never thought about, and you're going to say, "Oh my God, I never thought about that before."
Yeah.
What a great moment that is. And how did that happen? Active curiosity. And finally,
Okay,
go
before you
ahead.
go to the fourth one, I just
Go
want to
ahead.
point out this whole thing that has been a common thread through all the work that I've been doing over the years. It's that we need to ask better questions.
Mm-hmm.
That is the key to empathy. That's the key to prioritization. That's the key to inspiring people. We're focused so much on finding the quick answers. We need to be asking better questions. So I love that this fits right in with one of your keys to communications.
Here's the greatest challenge. You know what a better question is? A question that you don't want to learn, a question it is they want to share.
Hmm.
Because if I'm focusing on what it is I want to ask, I'm not hearing what it is they're saying. Now, if we do all the great pre-work and hard work we need to do and research and due diligence ahead of time, you don't have to think about it actively. It's all in the back of your brain. Because now what's happened is when you don't have the questions that you're thinking of in your brain, because remember, when you can't do two things at once. Again, I know you love Tasha Eurich as well, because I've read it in your books too. You cite her, and she's got a new one coming out.
Yep.
But in Insight, and also Simon Sinek says the same thing. We cannot, no matter what any other generation says, We can't multitask.
No.
It's impossible for us.
Hmm.
One thing at a time. And
Hmm.
if you're thinking about what it is you want to say or what it is you want to ask, you're not focusing on what it is they are actually saying, what it is
Hmm.
they actually want to share. And that's what being present is. That's what active curiosity is. And so that's what a great question is. A great question is following up with something that they shared. Now,
Hmm.
granted, since you have it in the back of your mind where you're hoping to go together, the
Hmm.
question you ask is going to be threading what they said to the destination that you both want to get to.
Hmm.
That's what a great question is.
I love it. Okay. And the fourth key.
Simple, empower people with choice. In other words, use the word if more than anything else. If, like when the FBI, I was recruiting competent human sources or spies or whatever, the way I would empower people with choice, I'd give them my little song, my little dance. I'd offer an opportunity to do something patriotic if that's something you're comfortable with. If not, let me know what it is, and I'll do my best to accommodate you. That's
Hmm.
it. Offer a choice. So
How can
those
leaders do that when there is no choice? This is the question I'm getting a lot of. I'm trying to be as empathetic as possible, but the new policy is the policy, and I can't change that. So, how do I have a conversation where I want to listen and I want to hear what they're saying and I want to build that trust and build that rapport? But at the end of the day, we can't actually give them the choice of what they want. How would you answer that question?
I do the same thing. I'd say, so here's what we got to do, and here's a new policy that's coming down the line. If that's something you're comfortable with, and please raise your hand. Let me know who's not comfortable with this, and we're going to work it through because this is what we need to do.
Love it. Love it.
Literally, because
Yeah.
people don't expect all the time that you're going to do what they say. They just want to feel like
No,
they're heard, and
a
not
hundred
just feel
percent.
like
That's
it.
empathy
And
is not about caving in. It's about
right,
helping people support people through and listening to them. And okay, I get that this is hard for you. How can we, it's going to happen anyway. So how can I best support you through this?
I just loved asking if that's something you're comfortable with, because then you're saying that, hey, I understand and recognize and validate that you might be that someone might be uncomfortable with this. Let me know what is making you uncomfortable, and we'll work
Hmm.
through that until you are comfortable, and then we're doing it.
Hmm.
In other words, I am here to problem solve to yes. That's exactly what we're doing. My number one thing in life, how do we move towards yes? I do this
Hmm.
on the phone with people I'm dealing with warranty people. I was literally doing this all the time. I'm battling on a warranty on I have a motorhome. I'm battling
Hmm.
on a warranty company right now on my motorhome. And when the first time I got on the phone with the warranty people, I said, "All right, let me know how we can move towards yes. I just need to know what you need to do to feel safe and comfortable saying yes to what we need to have done. How do we move towards yes?"
Love it.
Yeah. Again, how do you say no to that?
Right. And also, I just want to have a former FBI agent negotiating everything in my life on my behalf. I think that's awesome. The last question I want to share, because I mean, there's so much in the book, and I really want folks to take some time to listen to it or read it, because what I love about the book is for each key, you give actionable ideas for people,
Right.
or you give actions they can take
Right.
to improve that area of communication. But I want to kind of wrap up with this idea of context, because we were talking even in the pre-call the importance of understanding someone's context. And that's, really my definition of empathy is that
Yeah.
it's a fact-finding mission to understand someone's context so that you can figure out the next right step to take together. Because if I make all these assumptions about why you feel the way you feel or why you believe what you believe, that's not accurate. I need to hear it from you. I need to understand how you got there, even if I don't agree with you. So, talk to me a little bit about context and the role that you think it plays in building unbreakable alliances.
I got my goosebumps as soon as you mentioned it. Context is key, and it's my word for empathy that I use. It's my word for inclusion, diversity, whatever anyone wants to say. I don't care what it is. It's literally what Brene Brown talks about in her books, and that is, it's not just enough to walk in someone else's shoes. You have to take yours off first.
Hmm.
And this is deep content. And how did I learn this? And so let's bring it back to the spy world.
Yeah.
Every time I had to, or I had an operation where I was going to pitch and try to recruit a Russian military intelligence officer, which was my main job in New York, my supervisor, I'd come up with my plan, I'd come up with my operation of what it is I wanted to say and all the stuff and the logistics and all that. And I bring it into him for approval to move forward, to move it up to headquarters, State Department, all the things I had to do. And the first thing he say was to me was like, all right, say it. I go, what? Actually say exactly what it is you think you're going to say. Go now. And it's like, and he goes, and then he'd follow up with, so why should I want to be recruited by you? I said, because, no, I said, no, no, no. Why should I am Sergey Ivanov. Why would I want to be recruited by you? What's going on in my life with my family, with my retirement or lack of retirement, my pay, the challenges, priorities, and pain points in my life that I should even want to have a conversation and listen to you? And then he'd say to me, if you can't answer that question, don't even speak to me yet.
Mm.
He forced me to have deep, active empathy and context. Every time a behavioral team would go in and offer suggestions and points to consider, as we call them, for a recruitment operation,
Hmm.
every single time we told the case agent, before you open up your mouth and give what you think is going to be this masterful one-liner, you must know your individual. And I don't call the word subject or target of an investigation because that dehumanizes a human being. You're about to have a conversation with a beautiful human being that you're hoping to solve a challenge or party or pain point in their life and offer them resources for it. In reciprocity, that they will help protect the national security of the United States and our NATO allies. That is what I did.
Hmm.
I said, you need to do a deep dive of what their day-to-day life is. What time do they get up? What time do they go to work? What kind of things they do at work? What their day-to-day life is with their family, the challenges they have, how many soccer practices they're going to. I want you to do such a deep dive. And then after you do enough of a deep dive, I want you to actually live that schedule to the best of your ability for 2 weeks. And then I want you to take that line that you think is so masterful, give it to one of your squad members, and walk up to you on the street, just like you plan on doing them, and have them deliver that line to you and see how it feels.
Wow.
And if it feels too creepy, don't open your mouth. That is how I learned context.
Wow. Mic drop. I mean, this is the thing that gets me over and over again. First of all, thank you for sharing that story. Secondly, this I I'm just going to call it a complaint that, well, this all takes too long. I've got work to do.
Sure.
To which my response is the most important use of your time is inspiring and motivating and leading your people. So if you don't have time to get to know them and what's going on for them and what motivates them and what speaks to them and what inspires them, you need to look at where you're spending your time. And I think a lot of leaders, who are just basically, they're not leaders, they're glorified managers. They come into these roles with knowing how to do the work. And then they step into a leadership position and still hide behind the work and don't actually dig into getting to know their people, getting to understand how to optimize, if we're being really cold, right?
Hmm.
Optimize their most precious assets, which are their people. That's actually the difference between leadership and management, is
Hmm.
that a manager manages tasks, a leader leads people. And so to those leaders, and I just want to also acknowledge, I know it's hard. I know that, that's why I wrote the second book. That's why I wrote The Empathy Dilemma, is they're
Right.
caught between managing the needs of the organization and the needs of their people while also trying to protect their own boundaries and mental health. So I'm not saying it's easy, but the challenge I have is if you don't think you have time to engage, maybe not to that degree, but I mean, really engage in having a conversation. What's going on for you? How's your family? What did you do on your last vacation? Having those conversations where you're actually getting to know someone as a person so that you can better lead them, you can better inspire them. I really feel like that's not necessarily um, a skill gap. I mean, it could be, but it's also a prioritization issue. Where are you actually spending your time that you don't have time to do that?
Right. So here's an interesting, fun stat for you.
Hmm.
So I was in the FBI for 22 plus years before I retired. There was not one instance in 22 plus years of me working counterintelligence that taking a shortcut and not doing that ever worked. Not once.
Yep.
Taking, yeah, we called them, cold pitches, where you didn't take time to understand the individual, you didn't understand the context, and just
Yeah.
walk up to them on the street and try to make a cold pitch, like a cold sale, like a cold
Yeah.
call.
Like a cold call. Hmm.
Never worked once in my experience in 22 plus years.
Well, and that's, what's so funny. So much of what you're talking about is what I have learned and taught around marketing and branding and effectively connecting and engaging with a customer. And that is when you don't take that time to understand what's important to them, when you don't take that time to ensure your message speaks to what's in it for them and what they care about, it will always fail. No one cares about your widgets and your functions and your features unless you help someone understand how it benefits them. And so to your point, those interactions were the cold pitch that didn't work.
And here's the beauty where we can put it all together with these other things about transparency and vulnerability and open, honest communication.
Mm-hmm.
So say that you are in a high pressure situation, promulgation from on high that you got to make this cold pitch, and you got to do all things and blow all the things we just said. You don't have time for context, you don't have time to do all this, and you got the high pressure. Then you can counter that by doing this. I've done this all the time too. When I walk into a business as a counterintelligence agent in the FBI and try to inspire some company and a president to share all the information with me to help protect the national security of their company, I said whatever it is, and said, listen, I have no idea why you'd want to have a conversation with me. I did the best I could to do all I could to learn your company ahead of time, to learn what your goals, priorities, and objectives are. I think I made a little bit of a guess here, but I'm probably off on that. I would love it if you had time to let me know what some of those things are. Here's the resources I have that I'd love to offer you if that's in line with what's good and important to you. But if not, let me know and I'll completely leave you alone.
Mm.
I made a cold call. You know how many times I was told, get away from me, don't ever talk to me again? Zero. And that's not me. And I didn't know the context. So here's the context I did know. Who's this guy coming in to talk to me out of the blue?
Right.
The only counter I could do to it was be an open, honest communication, transparency, and vulnerability. And I empowered them with choice about it, saying, if you want me to leave you alone, I'll completely do it.
Right. And
Right.
copying to the fact that I bet you're wondering what I'm doing here.
Yep. And it,
Yeah.
it, it always works because I'm being, again,
You're being real.
genuine, organic, present,
Mm-hmm.
making it all about them.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Well, I want everyone to pick up the book, Unbreakable Alliances. Pick it
Me
up,
too.
listen to it,
Sorry.
all the things. A spy recruiter's authoritative guide to cultivating powerful and lasting connections. And really just beyond the leadership realm, beyond the business realm, I think we need this advice more than ever in our world right now because our world feels so fractured and so polarized. And if we can start to forge these alliances, my big word for this year is community and collaboration. And I'm really leaning into that because no one's going to survive this alone. So we
Right.
need these unbreakable alliances right now. And how we create them is exactly what you spell out in your book. And I feel like this book could be applied to work, to leadership, but also to life as well. So really appreciate your time today, Robin. Always good to talk to you. And we'll have all your links in the show notes, as you know. But for folks on the go, someone's exercising right now, where can they learn more about you and your work?
Really, really simple. RobinDreeke.com. ROBINDREEKE.com. I have tons of videos. I got my podcast on there as well on YouTube that Maria's on twice. And so everything's right on there. Reach out. I'm here as a resource for you in your life.
I love it. And if you get the opportunity, bring Robin in to speak to your teams. He's a great speaker. Thank you so much, Robin. Great to talk to you.
Honor and a pleasure as always, Maria.
And thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of the Empathy Edge podcast. If you like what you heard, you know what to do. Rate, review, and share with a friend or a colleague. And until next time, please remember that cash flow, creativity, and compassion are not mutually exclusive. Take care and be kind.